Good morning and welcome to Pimbrook Software. My name is TJ O'Malley and I'll be taking you through the end of year procedure today. I'll be joined by my fellow technician, Jenny Nunes. Morning, Jenny.
Good morning.
The year-end booklet, together with other relevant information, can be downloaded from www.pimbrook.ie. It'll give you basically the ability to follow through what we're actually going through the booklet with, and also obviously you can make some notes as you're going along. The process in all will take approximately an hour and a half, so get some coffee in now while you can, and with some time at the end for questions and or comments. All the mics from yourselves will be on mute, so the only person you will hear will be myself. Any questions that you might have during the process, you can submit using the chat feature on your PC and your login. If time allows, we'll revert to these at the end, or failing that, if we will contact you directly afterwards with a reply to your specific query. So if you all are ready to go, and you can see my screen, I hope, so we will take it from the beginning and we'll work through it together as normal. So basically, with regards to our year-end process, come down here and look at, obviously on the first page is just basically the breakdown of the actual booklet and what is where and where it might be. I'll give you references to the pages as we're going through to make it simpler for yourself if you're trying to follow. I will be going through ABC. I won't be backtracking and causing you any frustration in any way at all. So if we then move down to the actual reason that we're here today, which is the payroll year end 2019. As normal, those of you who are familiar with ourselves, we always have the checklist at the beginning to show you the processes, when they need to be done, and in what order they need to be done. Also on the far right hand side there, we have little tick boxes here for you to actually use for each of the associated company stroke payrolls, so that you can tick off as you're going through the process and make sure that each and every one has had the process done. As I said, stage one must be completed prior to processing the final payroll for all 2019 payrolls, in order to ensure that all your relevant calculations, recalculations take place. Okay, so stage one, running the actual pay year end 2019 update. Okay, going down further, obviously then the next process will be completing the 2019 processing for your last period and associated bits that need to be done with that. Then we'll be going to stage three, which is starting this new year, 2020. Then after that, it is basically your accounting and financial year end. As you will notice, a lot of you who have done this before, an awful lot of the processes have been shortened or obviously gotten rid of altogether. So that'll make your processing a little bit easier and less time consuming. And then the final stage before you run out the door would be to set your first period and roll forward holidays, etc., the same as you would normally have done at that time, okay? Obviously, as you can see then, in the actual layout there, items marked with an asterisk are optional, depending on when perhaps your financial or deduction year ends, okay? So we'll start as we would normally start, which is running the payroll year end 2019 update, okay? The first thing to make sure is in your payrolls that you locate what you're actually going to be updating and where it is. So basically to locate, log into your payroll as normal, go along the top tabs and click on help, and then click down on the drop down to the second last one for system information, okay? Before running any of the updates, I would always make a note of these locations for your program directory and your data directory, because depending on your setup, these are the locations that you will need later on. And I know myself, if you don't make note of them, you'll be frantically looking around going, where did I find it and what is it? So if you want to make notes of those in there as you're going along, that would be the best way to go forward, okay? Next thing before you actually run the update would be to take a full system backup as you are going along. So before installing it, you must take a backup of the system files, which is your programs and your payroll data. If you have already updated your software, we recommend that you take the backup after all pay periods have been processed. Okay, this should be kept safe for all future reference, as it helps you to minimize the possibility of ever having to recreate information manually. And also remember that the revenue commissioners require that you retain details of your payrolls for at least 6 full tax years. and also take into consideration GDPR and your local setup for that. So basically, to take our backup as we're going along, select login and log into a payroll. You log into the system administration in your normal login window rather than your normal login as your user. The default for that, the username is admin, and the default password is pass, okay? But this may be different on your system. You may have a different password. If somebody knows what that is great. You just put that in. You don't need any association with regards to the payroll in the lower section, as we're going into the administration section. If by any chance you have lost the password, you can always give us a contact call and we can help you reset that. It is something you should keep safe at all times. So once you've logged in as admin and pass, or whatever your password is, you then select along the top tabs into miscellaneous and then click on the drop down for backup, and the pop-up will appear insofar as it will show you all the payrolls that you have. It'll show you their actual frequency. It'll show you what period you're currently in and what the status is at that time. So basically, on the right-hand side then, you click and select all button, or individually tick the relevant companies, and then select backup files down in the bottom of the left-hand side. That is just to take insofar as everything in the kitchen sink of the backup is your data, your passwords, everything else is associated with you. Okay. Ensure that the enter backup drive and directory field specifies the correct storage locations for your backup down here in the bottom. This is where you are going to be saving your backup to. You can save it wherever you want. We would suggest that you name a new folder, call it full system backup or full system backup 2019 or whatever you may make sense to yourself. Add the year if desired or some reference for yourself. You should use a reliable storage medium such as a network drive or a memory disk. I wouldn't put it on the PC that you actually have your payroll on. Best not to have all your eggs in one basket, okay? Also notice that if you're putting it on a pen drive or a memory stick, the payroll sizes vary depending on the much information that you have and how many you're pushing in that one location. The system backup should require up to probably about 100 megs of memory. Okay, so when you're browsing on the bottom right-hand side and you click on the little button there with the 3 dots in it, it'll show you where exactly you want to save it. It'll show you your drives that you have in your PC. You can click into whichever location you've chosen, or if it's a memory stick, etc. The easiest thing to do is to click the browse button, find or make a new folder where you want to save it. And then when you are ready, it'll show you that location down in the enter backup and drive and directory window. And when you are happy with the location that it's going to be saving to, click backup down the bottom right-hand side and let it go about its business, okay? The backup will be created in the specific location. Click OK in the confirmation dialog box. The backup process is now complete. You have taken a full system backup of all your payrolls. Okay, now if you are putting it in a location that already exists or where you have one, you will get a notification if backup already exists. This is, as I said, if a backup already exists in the folder that you've selected, you will be alerted by a message on the screen. Click backup to this folder to overwrite the existing backup. Otherwise, click choose another folder and specify a different location. You can do this by going onto My PC and create a new folder to back it up to. Give it whatever name you want. Again, click on whatever drive you want, and then back into the process of click on the browse button, go to that location, and then take your backup to that location. Okay, so once that's done, that is your backup taken and you've passed the first step. The next thing, before we actually do anything else, the next thing is just to look at things to note before running the pay year end update. With regards to on your PC, depending on your operating system and how it's set up, it may be necessary to have full administration rights on your computer. So if you are logged in on as John or Joe or Mary, it may be required that you have your IT give you administration rights rather than just user rights. If you're unsure about this, contact your IT company and just ask them for details on that. If they need any assistance, they can always call us. The next thing would be your Sage Payroll version. To install the Payroll year-end 2019, you must be using Sage Payroll 2019 version 22.1 or above. This can clearly be seen up in the top left-hand side of your standard payroll when you log into it. Your payroll status. In order to run it, your payroll status on each of the payrolls must be at a status of end of period or EOP or start of period, SOP. I'm sure we're quite familiar with that. Before you run the update, make sure that you close out other applications. Before processing, close any applications which are open on your PC, including Sage Payroll and any other Sage products that you may have. A note to anybody who does not know about it already, the end of support for Windows 7 Service Pack 1 is coming about. So as you may be aware, Microsoft will be ending support for Windows 7 Service Pack 1 on the 14th of January 2020. This will include the cessation of security updates for that package. If you are installing the year-end update on a Windows 7 PC, you will be presented with a notification during the installation process, a little pop-up window. You must acknowledge the notification before you can proceed with the update, as seen below. When the notification is presented, tick the I acknowledge the above warning and want to proceed with the installation tick box, and then click Next. Downloading the actual update itself so that you can get started. Within the application, if your automatic news feeds is enabled, you will receive an automatic notification to download the end of year update, the PYE. If you don't have a notification, by clicking Help, check for updates at the top of your normal screen within your payroll. Outside of this, alternatively, you can download the payroll year-end update from our website, pimbrook.ie/knowledgebase/25210, and there's a shortcut to that link there within it. Moving along, the next thing then would be step 3, and this is running the payroll year-end update. So basically, when you have it downloaded, it should appear on your screen in your PC. So if we just come back out here, as you can see here on my PC, I have it saved down to my desktop. Where you save it is not an issue, just so that you know where it is and you can actually access it. When you double click it, you will receive it. It'll run as quick as possible with regards to the speed and setup of your own PC. It'll take a moment or two to get itself started, and then it'll give you a pop-up. Going back to it, okay, the system will actually start extracting the installer as I just showed you there. When you get the pop-up for the window, the first thing that you'll be asked, as ever with everything technology-wise these days, you have to sign your life away by clicking on the license agreement, make sure you read it, and then when you're happy, click on the I accept the terms of the license agreement, and then click Next. Specify whether you want to carry out this computer, a client, or a server install. This is the question that most people find difficult at the end of the year insofar as what am I doing and where am I going? So if you remember, we took note on page 4 with regards to our location of the payroll data and the directory. Now you need to think insofar as those locations. Is it this computer? Is it a client, or is it a server install? So with regards to this computer, if your program directory and your data directory are on the same computer, the same drive, as we spoke about earlier, then use this computer option. If your program directory and data directory are in different locations, you must install the client application on each computer using the payroll, and we'll have notification about this underneath. Also, hand in hand with this would be the server install. If your program directory and data directory are in different locations, you must run this option prior to running your client application above. The server installation is run only once. Please read the client installer below. We have, just to give difference about this, the client server note. By different locations, we mean on 2 different PCs, i.e. the program directory is on your client PC that you are sitting at, and the data directory on a different PC or a server on your network. If this is the case for you, you must run the server install option first. You only need to run the server install option once. If you have, for example, 3 client PCs with Sage Payroll on them, and the payroll data is on a server out the back somewhere in a different room you've never seen before on the network, run the server option first from the first client PC. After that, run the client install on the first PC. So that's your data updated and that first client PC updated. Then on the other 2 PCs, run the client install on the second and then on the client option on the third PC, so that both of those PCs are now also updated to gather and take in the information of the updated data on the server. Hopefully that is clear. With regards to then, you specify whether you want to use a typical setting or a custom setting for your installation. A typical installation will suggest to install to the locations you identified earlier on where your data and your program is. A custom installation will suggest the locations identified previously, but will allow you to amend locations if you need to. We recommend you choose custom and then click next. The benefit of that is when you click that, it will show you, as identified here in the image, both locations, which you can then identify from the note we took and saved on page 4 with regards to where my data is and where my program is, as it clearly states here. Once you choose custom and click next, the installer will display a new screen showing the locations it intends to use. The location shown in the screen should be equal to the location you identified and we saved on page 4. If either of the locations shown in the screen displayed don't match your respective locations which you identified earlier, then click on the relevant browse for either your program or your data directory and make sure you browse to the location that we spoke about earlier on page 4. Okay, the browse button are only available if you choose a custom install previously on the screen beforehand. Once you're happy with the locations and that they match, then click next to continue. You get then an installation window and the screen prompting you to install will appear. This is the final screen before you commit to installing the update. If you're still not sure, you still have the option as shown down there in the bottom right hand side to go back, check your process, check where your locations are before you hit the away you go button. It once again displays the locations, giving you one last chance to change, and then you are okay. If you're still happy that the locations match those that you identified earlier, then click install. Once the installation starts, it will take a few minutes, depending on the speed of your PC, to complete, and it will show you the actual update as it is happening. When the installation process is complete, click finish. Launch Sage Payroll 2019 as normal for the first time since you ran the update by double clicking the Sage Payroll 2019 desktop shortcut as you would normally do. When you next log into your 2000 payroll, each of the payrolls, check the version number displayed for Sage Payroll 2019. The version number should be V22.5, and as you can clearly see, this will be noted at the top left-hand corner of the payroll when you log into it. Okay, so once you have that done, once you've updated your data directory and once you've updated each of your client PCs, then you're ready to move on to stage 2, and that is completing the 2019 processing. So basically that is just to finish off your 2019 year, do your last payroll, and then move on to actually setting up to 20. We are now on page 12, just to give you a reference back on that. Okay, again, we've put together some things to note prior to doing your processing your final pay in 2019. So if we go through each of those. Changes to the year-end process. The process for completing the tax year has changed due to PAYE modernization. Because you have been doing real-time period submissions to revenue throughout 2019 tax year, there is no longer any need to submit a year-end return. Running P35 or P60 reports, those reports are no longer available in the software and no longer needed. The employee end of year statement, previously called P60s, This year, for the first time, employees are required to log into their Revenue My account to retrieve their own end-of-year statement for this tax year. This is the equivalent of issuing of P60s in previous years. As the year end approaches, it might be a good idea just to remind the employees of this new process rather than them waiting for you to actually hand them a piece of paper, which you no longer need to do. If we move along then to pay dates and pay date rule. The pay date rule means that if the pay date for a period in a 2019 date, then the period belongs in the 2019 payroll. And if the pay date is a 2020 date, then it belongs in the 2020 payroll. All scenarios for this are governed by the pay date rule. Check if you have an extra pay period. Because the number of days in the tax year doesn't divide into a whole number of tax weeks, any remaining days are known as a week 53. This year, in 2019, you will only have a week 53 if you normally pay your employees on a Tuesday and the pay date falls on the 31st of December. There's a little example over on the right-hand side for a yes or no scenario that you can go through to help you with that decision. Going further down then, things to consider regarding dates at year end. So for example, for 4 weekly payrolls, payments to employees should be on the same day every week, including over Christmas. Holiday pay for days taken in 2019 need to be paid in the 2019 payroll. Holiday pays for days taken in 2020, for example, the 2nd and the 3rd of January, need to be paid in the 2020 payroll. When a company is going to run a 3-week payroll, i.e. period 51 and 52, and another period, the pay date rule applies. If the pay date of the 3rd week falls in 2019, then it should be included in the 2019 system. Ideally, if the pay date of the 3rd week falls in 2020, then it should be included in the 2020 system. If the pay date of the 3rd week does fall in 2020, then this means you will need to run 2 payrolls, one in 2019 system and one in the 2020 system. It will also mean 2 bank payments have to be made if you are paying by bank transfer. All of this is irrespective of when the work was carried out. I know this causes questions for most people at the end of a year, and I'm sure every year will always be the same. So again, going on then to page 13, at the top there are some examples insofar as examples of correct and incorrect year end 2019, year start 2020 dates for you to look over, and it may help you with regards to any queries you might have regarding that. If we're moving on then, anybody who would previously have processed P or D, it is now called ASC. As you know, it has changed, and this would normally be regarded to public sector employees only. If you have employees in your payroll who pay an additional superannuation contribution or ASC, then this applies to you, obviously. In the 2019 tax year, the system can automatically recalculate the additional superannuation contribution ASC amounts for that year. If the employee is entitled to a refund arising from any of these recalculations, the refund amount will be incorporated into the employee's payslip. When entering in the time and pay on the final payroll, you can tick the ASC box in the recalculation section at the bottom left-hand side of your screen to instruct payroll to carry out the recalculation for the employee in question. The recalculation section is only available in Sage Payroll version 22.5, so be sure to run the year-end update before processing your final pay period in 2019. And below is an example of exactly where that is within the actual details. There is a new feature that has been set up in Payroll. It is a gift card feature. If you purchase gift cards for your employees at year end or at any time in the year, then this new feature may be a welcome time saver. The new feature is available in version 22.5 and onwards. A new menu item has been added at the top of the screen for gift cards with a sub item for one for all. And as you can clearly see, it's along the top heading just beside to the right of miscellaneous within your actual payroll. In order, when the 1 in 4 option is selected, the Purchase One for All gift card screen opens. This displays a list of all active employees. The user can enter a gift card amount of between 15 and 500 for a one-time payment. When the user takes purchase on One for All website, the One for All website is launched, showing the shopping cart, the employee's name, and the amounts of gift cards. The user must complete the purchase on the One for All website. Sage Payroll does not send or store any payment information, nor are the purchases passed into the timesheets. It is only access and also giving you the benefit of having all your individual employees indicated so that you can choose if you want to use that. Okay, so if we move along to processing the final pay period of 2019, excuse me, you will basically be processing the last period of your company payroll in the usual way. Normally, the last pay period is week 52, month 12, or fortnight 26. But in some years, for non-monthly payrolls, you might have an extra pay period. If you're running a weekly payroll, it's okay to finish on week 51 if all employees are paid for a double period or double week, i.e. 2 tax credits, 2 insurable weeks, 2 weeks work, etc. In all scenarios, be sure to adhere to the pay date rule that we spoke of earlier. When your final payroll is complete, run end of period in your normal way. We are now on page 15, just to keep you up to date. Step 2 of running your final payroll. This year, we will be comparing the control summary and the employee monthly liability reports. This is the reduction on the actual ticking and bashing that you would normally have had to do in prior years. Before continuing, make sure that your payroll status is at end of period so that all figures reported are up to date. So, as normal, you at the end of period go into your select your reports, payroll reports from the menu at the top of the screen, or alternatively, you can select report button from the main screen with the conjoined boxes. When the payroll reports window is presented, select control summary and then click print, or you can preview it first and then click print. If you want to print the consolidated control summary report, you will need to log into your consolidated company to do this if you have one set up. We'll talk about consolidation and consolidated company later on. If you do not yet have a consolidated company, you can create one by following the guide, which is at the end of the booklet. If we move along, you print the monthly liability report. In the payroll reports window, choose the company tab over on the far right along the top of your actual window. Select the employee monthly liability report option and then click the preview or print button. A new screen is presented offering you a list of all your payrolls. Click include to select the payroll you've logged into and click continue at the bottom of the screen. If you want to print a consolidated liability report, choose the relevant payrolls and click continue at the bottom of the screen. When prompted to show quarterly subtotals, click no. Moving on to page 16. Now you need to compare the information on the 2 reports as follows. Make sure that the control summary data specified in the table below, left column, matches the employer monthly liability report data specified in the table below, right column. For example, in the image. So basically from our control summary, if we look at the top tab there, what we are looking at is your cumulative control totals at the end of your control summary. And out of those details, you are looking for the tax disemployment carried forward figure, the USC disemployment carried forward figure, and also the culmination of the PRSI employee and the PRSI employer carried forward figure. You compare them then with the employee monthly liability report, and the totals we are looking there is for the income tax total at the bottom, the USC total at the bottom, and the PRSI accumulated total at the bottom. If we just move down a little bit, we can see the control summary in the upper quadrant there, and the combining figures that we need to match them to from running the monthly liability report below. And obviously, if everything is right, they should match. Okay. When printing deduction reports, ensure you tick and include the include levers option to ensure all values are included. So if there are any other reports regards to payments or deductions that you want to run off, they're at your own need and necessity, but they can be ran from there, including the local property tax, if that is relevant to you. The local property tax figure for the actual monthly liability report, as you can see, will be there, but you will need to run a report, as it doesn't come into the control summary, you will need to run the deductions report to find the LPT value if you require it. Okay, so once that is done, we have finished step 2, and now we are moving on to step 3, which would be view and save reports. Again, you may have your own reports that you normally save. What we would suggest would be with regards to the following. While printing and saving some of your report suggestions below is optional, we think it is good practice to finalize your payroll year end doing so. Saving time to PDF or Excel is a good idea, as they can easily be passed on to your auditors or accountants when needed. We recommend to print or save the following reports, but if you have a preference for other reports or other reports that you have always done, you can add them to the list below. Obviously, we've just looked at the control summary report, the employee's detailed summary report, earnings tax and PRSI for each individual on your payroll, and if it applies to yourself, if it is applicable, your ASC reports. Just to go through the process of going through those, so if we click on print, save the control summary report, select the reports, payroll reports from the menu at the top of the screen. Alternatively, select the reports from the bottom of the main screen as we did already. When the payroll report window opens, we have already gone through where you are creating your control summary. To print it, click the print button, or if you prefer to save it as a PDF, click the PDF button, and you may want to save that into our folder where we have all our other year-end information so that you have everything in one box so you know where it is. Moving on to print and save the employment details summary report. Your Sage Payroll version 22.5 software includes an employment details summary report. It shows pay, tax, USC, local property tax, and PRSI information for every person employed by you during the current tax year. This report is for reference only and is not an official revenue document. You are not required to hand this out to employees, but you can print or PDF it for your own reference if you so wish and save it into your folder. If an employee asks you for a summary of this employment, this will be the report to give them should you want to. To access this report, click on the year-end menu tab at the top of your screen, then choose tax year-end reports. As you will see, this window has changed slightly. From the window that is presented, choose employment details summary. Choose to include levers using the include lever tag tick box. To print, click the print button, or if you prefer to save it as a PDF file, click the PDF button. You can select a single employee or a range of employees by choosing employee code or department or cost center or any of the other options that is there in the sequence list box and entering the relevant employees in the from and to box or departments or whatever your tag is. This will actually show you the employee detail summary report and what the content of that is. As we said, they are the details that would normally be within this new report. Moving on to print, save, earnings, tax and PRSI report. Again, we select reports, payroll reports, or alternatively, as we said before, you go to your normal report button in your main window. When the payroll report opens, select the employee tab at the top of the screen, select the earnings, tax and PRSI report on the left. To print, click the print button, or if you prefer to save this as a PDF file, click the PDF button. You can select a single employee or a range of employees by choosing employee code in the sequence list box as before, and entering the relevant employees in the from and to fields. The earnings, tax and PRSI report shows one page per employee and lists each period earnings, tax, PRSI, USC, etc. for that employee. Browse your report and confirm that it is correct and complete. There is also an option, for those of you who are familiar with it, On the right-hand side, for a summary of the earnings tax and PRSI report. In addition to the steps above, just tick the sum tick box before clicking your option of print or PDF. The summary report shows one line of cumulative totals per employee. So instead of having a page per individual, you can have a much more concise report with the same details with cumulative totals for each employee in a line. This often is helpful for passing information on to accountants, etc., as they just want the bottom line figures. Moving on to page 20. Basically, it's to print and save the ASC 35 and ASC 60 reports, which were previously part of the PRD. If ASC, additional superannuation contributions, are applicable to your payroll in 2019, then you will need to print the ASC 35 and the ASC 60. The ASC 35 pertains to the whole payroll and is a summary of all the ASC processed through the year. The ASC 60 pertains to the individual from whom it was deducted. To access these reports, click on the year-end menu item at the top of the screen and choose Tax Year-End Reports. From the window that is presented, choose ASC 35 or the ASC 60 as desired. To print, click the print button, or if you prefer to save it as a PDF and save it to your year-end folder, click the PDF button. You can select again a single employee or a range of employees by choosing employee code in the sequence list box and entering then the relevant employee or employees in the to and from fields to complete this. If your payroll is a weekly payroll, you will be asked if there was an extra pay period. That would require insofar as whether you had a week 53. Choose yes or no as appropriate for your own payroll. The ASC 35 will look something like this with the details assigned to it for the individuals, for their work number, for their gross income, the ASC amount, and the start date and or end date. Moving down, the ASC 60 will look something like this and the associated details with it for each employee. Moving on to page 22. We are now at step 4, you will be happy to hear, and we're nearly finished the actual details of stage 2 already. So with regards to step 4, these are housekeeping tasks that we think it is wise that you have a look at and go through. Details with regards to the ABCs of these are associated on the website. There are help and also step-by-step information about it. We'll go through one or two, but the information is at the end of the booklet. Most of the following housekeeping tasks can be done at any time throughout the tax year, but the end of a tax year is a good time to make sure everything in your payroll data is correct before you move that data into the new year and move on. Best to try and sort out any issues before you just simply carry them over into an ongoing new year. Housekeeping tasks that you can carry out are: validate your payroll data. Ideally, we would suggest that you do this every period just to keep on top of any little nitty-gritty things that may actually bring themselves to light so that you can actually deal with them as they occur. Next one will be to check your company information is correct. The main reason for this is to make sure that when you're doing your reports, it's not just going to throw you out because maybe perhaps in your telephone number, or if you're still putting in a fax number, you've got dots, dashes, spaces, whatever it might be. The next one would be to check your employee details are correct. That goes without saying, to make sure that everybody has an ID number, that they have their PPS number, that if they have a start and a finish date, etc. Next one would be to check your director's setting. This is if it's applicable to yourselves. That we'll talk about that in a moment, is to indicate what kind of directors you actually have on the company. The next one would be to check your start dates for people who have started with you. Again, the next one will be check your leaving dates for people who have left you during the year. The next one will be to check the PAYE exclusion orders, again, if you have had any of those on the system. The next one would be to check whether you actually have a shadow payroll. Again, if this is applicable to you. Some of this may not be applicable to most of you, so don't worry about it. If it's not relevant. The next one will be to check your pensions are set up correctly. If you are using pensions on the system, to make sure that they are set up right, that they are creating the file that you want if you're electronically sending the information away to your provider. Also check medical insurance liable for tax relief in employee's record, again, if it's relevant. For your reference, as I said, a housekeeping guide with further details, tasks 2 to 10, can be found at the end of this booklet. We will just go through and look at probably one of the most relevant ones on an ongoing basis for most of you, which would be to validate your payroll data, ideally make it part of your payroll process. So you can use the validate payroll option. You can use your validate payroll option to check your payroll data for any issues that may cause your revenue submissions to fail. We don't want that to happen, so that's why we would suggest that you do this every period. We recommend that you validate your payroll data during every pay period as part of your regular payroll process. It's usually best to run the validate payroll data process prior to running your submission to revenue, so that if there are any issues, you can actually go back and change them prior to sending your submission off to revenue. If you do not run the validate payroll data option every pay period, you may find yourself in a situation where an issue has gone undetected and you may be forced to rerun and resubmit previous payrolls to correct that problem. So in hindsight, it's probably better to do it before the event rather than having to go back and do it after the event. So to follow, to validate your payroll data, select reports from the menu at the top of your screen and then click validate payroll data. The validate payroll data will run and the results will be displayed in a notepad screen. Any issues will be displayed in the screen along with any solution or resolution the software has to offer. You should apply the solution suggested, but if you're in any doubt, do feel free to call us for advice with regards to the issue that may have presented itself. To print a copy of the validate payroll data report, click File up in the top left-hand corner of the notepad window and then click Print. If you have more than one payroll, repeat this process above in each of them, obviously, so that you can see the issues that may be pertaining to the particular payroll in question. That is stage 2 finished of the process. We are now on the end of page 22, and I hope it is going along nicely and making sense for you at this stage. So if we move on to setting up starting tax year 2020. Again, we've put together some details at the start of this just to make sure that you can check them prior to going through, and perhaps it's answering some questions that you may have already had with regards to the new year. We know that payroll modernization is still slightly new and an unknown entity for a lot of us, and therefore obviously we want to make you feel as comfortable as possible actually going into the actual process. Obviously, if you are having any questions as you're going along, just make sure to put them onto your screen and then we will either come back to them given time, use the chat tab, or else we'll come back to you individually afterwards. So please don't hesitate if there are any questions that are arising out of the process as we're going through it at this moment in time. So, things to note before processing first pay in 2020. First of all, clear RPN submission logs. As part of the setup tax year 2020, the RPN logs are not migrated across to the new tax year system. When a user moves their payroll from current tax year, e.g. 2019, to new tax year, e.g. 2020, both the RPN and payroll submission logs will not come across. This is so they are easier to manage and reconcile, and you're starting with a blank sheet. Next thing, employer monthly liability report, 2020 report, 2020 pay dates from 2019 payrolls are included. Let's just clarify that. Sage acknowledged that while it's not encouraged, a 2019 tax year payroll may contain January 2020 pay dates, which will need to be included in the January section of the 2020 Employer Monthly Liability Report. The Employer Monthly Liability Report in the 2020 system will include 2020 pay dates for 2019 payrolls. Just give you a second on that. Moving along to the next item. RPN numbers in your 2020 system. When you create your 2020 payroll, the RPN number in Employee Details record will be cleared as per revenue guidelines. The RPN number will start again at 1 for the new tax year for each employee. Again, it's been cleared down and then you move on starting from 1. Next item. New pay period fields is included on the payroll submission. To comply with the Revenue ROS payroll submission schema for the tax year 2020, Sage have included a new pay period field on the payroll submission for 2020. The pay period field will be used by Revenue for employee in-year recalculations to determine if credits and rate bands are allocated to best effect. Next item. Clear PAYE exclusion orders flag in 2020 system where appropriate. If you are not using exclusion orders, you don't need to worry about this. If you are, to ensure the employee has the correct exclusion order settings for 2020, the Sage Payroll software will examine the exclusion order has effect until date when transferring a payroll into the 220 system. If an employee in Sage Payroll 219 has the Apply Payroll Submission Exclusion Order checkbox selected, Sage Payroll will check that the has effect until date while running the Setup 2020 tax year routine. Depending on what this date is, the employee's PAYE exclusion order may need to be cleared. The setup routine will clear it if this is appropriate. Next item would be your RPNs in relevant tax year. As you probably already know, Revenue can issue RPNs for a future tax year, e.g. they may issue 2020 RPNs in December of 2019. And we've been made aware that actually they will have them available in the 4th of December. Okay, at this moment in time, that just came out this morning. Also, if the RPN applies to the 220 tax year, the software will not allow it to be retrieved into the 219 tax year system and vice versa. 219 RPNs will still be available up to including the 31st of December 2019. That's another piece of information we just received from Revenue this morning. The software will only allow appropriate correct tax year RPNs to be retrieved in each tax year. Okay. The next item would be the ROS cert file extensions. You may be aware of this if you've had issues with regards to your cert and your new password when you change them, not being able to see where you downloaded your new cert details to. And this is to clear that item. When selecting a ROS certificate, the Sage Payroll 2020 system will now allow you to select a file with any extension. The software now includes an all files option in the drop-down list when browsing for a certificate file. This is to further proof the software against possible cert extension changes which needed to be done up until recently. And also, just the last thing on this would be, if you are using CWPS, Construction Workers Pension, the Construction Workers Pension year has changed. If you are using it, you will be aware of this as it happened earlier in the year. If you're using CWPS, you may remember that it has changed during 2019. The CWPS year used to run from January to December. The new CWPS year now runs from October to September. Since the start of the CWPS year is now mid-year, there is now no need to set up the CWPS calendar at the start of a new tax year, i.e. January. So hence the reason that's one less thing for you to worry about at your year end. We have enough to consider. Due to the change, you also do not need to clear down the CWPS balances. This should be done mid-year after the last payroll in September. So perhaps make a note if you are using CWPS, that'll be one thing out of the year end you have to do, but one thing you need to add to do at some other stage. Now, if we move on to page 24, we are now in the creation of 2020. And obviously, as ever, you will need to carry out this procedure on each of your payrolls. First thing to be most aware of is ensure you are logged into Sage Payroll 2019. It's a common mistake to make, but just make sure that you're clicking on the right box, because you will have, at this stage, you will have your 2020 box, which has been created by your update. So just be vigilant on the year that you're going into, okay? It's a common mistake, don't worry, everybody does it at some stage. So once you log into 2019, select along the top tabs your year end, your tax, and set up 2000 tax year menu options. You will be presented with the payroll setup screen. Click continue to start the process. During the process of creating the payroll for the 2020 tax year, employee cumulative values coming forward from 2019 are cleared and all levers are removed from the system. Payroll data for 2020 is stored in a separate directory from the 2019 data that will have been set up as part of your actual update. When the setup is complete, click close down the bottom right hand side, which means you successfully copied your payroll, that individual payroll, over into 2020 system. Tax year 2020 is now initiated for the relevant payroll. Prior to you moving over any of the payrolls, if you go by need or necessity to open up 2020 after running the update, it will be blank. There won't be anything in there prior to you actually moving these details over. Please note, you are still in Sage Payroll 2019, but you can now log into the company's new tax year in Sage Payroll 2020. The new icon will be available on your desktop, as we just said. Obviously, remember again also to do that for each of your payrolls. Otherwise, there'll be no relevant information available in the 220 startup. So now we're moving on to page 25. So once you have moved your details over into your new year is available. Note that Sage Payroll 2020 is version 23.0. And as you already know, Sage Payroll 2019 is now version 22.5 after running the update. To open Sage Payroll for the new tax year, double click the Sage Payroll 2020 shortcut icon on your desktop. Log into the payroll in your usual way. You can now work in the 2020 payroll. Please note that your payroll status and period will be blank until you set the period for the first time. That makes sense. When you log into your 2020 payroll, ensure that your Sage Payroll version number is 23.0. You can check this up in the bar, title bar of your software up on the left-hand side. Also, please check your limit of employees. This is shown in the title bar as well. It shows you the number of employees that can actually be processed and you have license to actually use. Next process will be changes to the payroll legislation announced in the Budget 220. This obviously is with regards to what has happened from the government. The main changes with regards to would be on the just on the USC, and also there are certain PRSI classes that have had a slight variation and a slight change. I'm not going to go through them one by one. It will be part of the update. They are automatically imported, so they are ready on the system to be used for any categories that you require. But there is some information there just for you so you can look over it and for reference. Okay, so if we now go on to step 3 and we are moving along, we're on page 27. So setting up a new payroll calendar, first thing to do in each of your payrolls. So if you go along to the top tabs of company payroll, click company payroll, and then go down to your calendar. In order to set up the new calendar, in the calendar window, click the new calendar tab. Enter the calendar details for period 1 of your new tax year and then click update. Note, it's very important to enter the correct period date for period 1 of the new tax year. This date determines all subsequent dates of the 2020 pay periods. When you go to set your period and you get your automatic updates or dates that are pulled over, this is where they're coming from. So you need to make sure that this is relevant and correct for yourself. So for example, if you are on a weekly payroll, your first pay date should fall between the 1st and the 7th of January. For a fortnightly payroll, for example, it should fall between the 1st and the 14th of January. If you're unsure about this, please refer back to the notes at the beginning of stage 2 regarding the dates. Otherwise, just give us a contact call and we'll be more than happy to help you with regards to that. Again, be mindful that the pay date refers to the date the employees receive their net pay. Revenue use this date to determine when you paid the employees. They do not use the period date to determine this, as is sometimes assumed. So, moving on, amend the calendar information if required, set your cost analysis year-end period, and then click Save. You can amend the cost analysis year-end to a period closest to your company's financial year-end if required. Repeat this process for each payroll you set up in 2020. If you have multiple payrolls with the same frequency and pay date, you can just create one calendar and then copy it again back where we started if you log in to the administration section. So if you do have the same setup, you don't need to set them all up each individually. You can set up one and copy it across into the other relevant payrolls. Okay, once that's done, the next thing would be, and again, if it's applicable to yourself, is to set up the ASC, Additional Superannuation Contribution. As I said, this is normally reserved for public sector employees. The ASC, the calculation come into effect from the 1st of January 2019 and replace the PRD, pension-related deduction. ASC is only relevant, as we said, to public sector employees. If you have any employees that are eligible for ASC deductions in 2020, you must assign the appropriate ASC settings within their records. On the menu bar, click Processing, then click Employee Details. Alternatively, select the Edit Employee window from your main screen in the conjoined boxes, which is what I would normally do myself. Select the relevant employee and then click on their Deductions tab. In the Deductions tab over on the right-hand side, you have the details associated with the ASC and their status. Assign the appropriate ASC settings. If the employee is in a subsidiary employment and their main employment is elsewhere, select and tick the subsidiary checkbox. Once that is done and you have the details in, click Save to save the changes that you've made. Moving along to page 29, we're now at stage 4 of the accounting financial year end. Just be mindful that the clear downs we are about to go through are done in the 2020 system, not the 2019 system. So please ensure you're in the correct year again and you've logged into the right one. Otherwise you are, it's a mistake. Now, the steps that follow involve accounting stroke financial year end tasks, which can be carried out whenever is appropriate for your company. The tax year runs from the 1st of January to the 31st of December. However, your company's financial year may not coincide with these dates. For example, the 1st of August to the 31st of July. If your financial year coincides with the tax year, then it is appropriate to carry out the financial year-end clear down before running period 1. Before doing this, ensure that you print the following reports: your cost analysis report, your payments report, basically your balances on your payments on the system, and also your deductions report, your deduction balances on the system. If your financial year runs from the 1st of January to the 31st of December, and you don't clear down the balances before processing the first period of the new tax year, you won't be able to clear down the balances at a later date during the year. At that point, you would need to make manual corrections within the employee details. So just be mindful of that. So if we go through them each separately, first of all, select or clear the cost analysis. Select year end along the top tabs, go to financial, and then click on the first of the three options, which is clear your cost analysis. A message alerts you that the cost analysis will be cleared. Click OK and carry out the clear down. That is the only option you get. It's a yes or no situation. You don't get any other references. You don't get any other chances. It's do or die at that stage. So when the clear out is complete, you click the OK to continue, and then it will tell you that the clear out is complete, and you click OK. The second option is to clear on your payments. Again, if you go across the top tabs, and you click year end, again financial, and the second option there is clear payments. When a table displays all the payments that can be cleared, you can select the relevant hours and or value checkboxes to clear the amounts for the selected payments. If you select nothing, remember nothing will be cleared. Also, you now have the option, if you are clearing every item and every value, you no longer have to go down through each box and tick it individually. You can now click on the untick the boxes that are not relevant above at the top, or you can select all. That'll auto select all your tabs on both of them, okay? Or you can clear them individually, whichever is up to yourself. When you click selected to proceed with the clear down, and once they are all ticked, or the relevant ones that you want are ticked, then clear selected. When prompted to continue, just say yes, and it'll show you that the financial year balances for the selected items will all be set to 0. When the payments are cleared, click OK. And then we're down to the third option, which is with regards to clearing our deductions. Once again, we go along the top tabs to year end, financial, clear deductions. Then we get the open box for all our deductions on the system. Select the checkboxes corresponding to each deductions to be cleared. Again, you now have the option to select all and untick the boxes that are not relevant. Tick the relevant balances that you wish to clear down. Now, the question is often with regards to, well, what do I actually get rid of and what do I actually leave? So if we just go down to, we are now on page 32, okay? And as we say there, take particular care when clearing the balances on a reducing balance reduction, i.e. loans or something like a bike to work. Obviously, just for those who are unfamiliar with it, take example of bike to work. A bike to work, somebody is maybe owing you money on a bike to work reducing balance. If that has been carried over into the new year, that means he still owes you for half a bike. If you clear off the standard amount, the first one there, that means that will have cleared off whatever balance is due and he'll get half a free bike, because I doubt he'll come back in and tell you that he needs to pay you for it. Just as an example, I don't mean to be flippant. You can choose to clear down one or more of the following. With regards to the standard amounts, you need to be sure that obviously if you have standard amounts set up on the system in the previous year, and they are still valid going into the new year, do not clear them down. Leave them as they are, okay? The next one down would be balance. Balance refers to the deduction total accumulated since the last clearance. So basically it's whatever has accumulated since you actually did it last year. Now, depending for the year balance, you can clear that down, but that is up to yourself. The next one for a total is a running total of the deduction in question since the deduction was first introduced. So it's your cumulative total since it was actually set up and used. Generically, we would suggest that perhaps, unless you have a reason to, that you would leave that. You never know when you might be asked to, What is this cost since it actually started? Okay. And then finally, your tax year balance. Your tax year balance is, as it says on the can, it is your tax year balance. Whether you need it or not is your own call. If you don't need it, clear it and keep your system tidy going forward. NB, nota bene, we have underneath that, do not clear down standard amounts. Unless you are sure you want to clear down the employee value of a deduction, as you will lose any deduction values for that deduction. So just be mindful of that. That's the main one that seems to upset people. We've had a question in there in regards to in what circumstances would you clear a standard amount? If it's running, you wouldn't. You would leave it because, as I said, the scenario that I gave you about a standard bike to work, unless it's finished, if it's finished, it won't be needed anymore and it won't be there till it closes itself off. If it's being carried over and he still owes you for half a bike, he still owes you for half a bike, so leave it. I hope that helps. Down below there, if we just move on, you can also clear the employee and employer non-tax deduction, the history, by selecting the checkboxes in the non-tax deduction, employee, employer section as appropriate. If you select nothing, remember nothing will be cleared, okay? Once you have selected the deductions you want to clear, then click clear selected as shown there on the actual window, okay? It will ask you to clear deductions. Financial year balances for the selected items will be set to 0. Do you wish to continue? And then you click yay or nay, yes or no. Yes to continue, or no if you want to rethink it. When the deductions are cleared, the chosen deductions are cleared, click OK. You can confirm that the cost analysis, payments and deductions have been properly cleared by running the relevant reports, and values cleared will not appear in those reports because you have it cleared down, and that is your fresh start at the beginning of the new year. Okay, and just be mindful again, depending on how your financial year is, you can run these clear downs at any stage. So it may be necessary to discuss maybe with your accountant when they want those balances cleared or if they don't want those balances cleared. Okay, so now, once that is done, we'll just move along. We've cleared our deductions. We've gone through everything that we're going to keep. And we move on to stage 5, which is set the first period and roll forward holiday year. And we are on page 33 at this moment in time, if you have it printed off and you just want to make sure where we are. Okay, so setting the first period. Again, where are we? Make sure that you are now into 20. Otherwise, it's going to be rather bad. Okay, to set the first period, select processing, set period, or select set period box from your conjoined on your main window. In the set period screen that is presented, ensure that the new period to process is set to 1 and check that the dates proposed are appropriate for the first period. These will be the dates that will automatically come over once you have set up your calendar for each of your payrolls. Make sure, check them always, and just make sure that they are right and they are flowing along in the right order for yourself. Once you're happy with that, click OK to continue. And you've set up your first period. Now, if your payroll holiday year finish date is the 31st to 12th, 2019, the system will automatically at this stage prompt you to roll forward the holiday information when setting the first period, okay? When you click OK on the set period screen, you will be prompted to roll forward your holidays and absence year. The options that you will have are shown in the window before. It's basically asking you in regards to, are you going to be bringing values over into the new year, or do you want to clear it? And do you want the system to say that your new holiday year starts on the 1st of the month in the new year? So if we go down and look at the options closer, and now we are on page 34. Okay, so basically the options that we have is to carry forward employees' holidays due into holiday year. Basically, you select this option. If you're selecting this option, it specifies that the employee's holiday balance, be it positive or negative, at the end of the holiday year preceding, should be added to the holiday balance at the beginning of this new holiday year. So basically, do you carry over any outstanding holidays and allow people to add them on to their New Year's totals, okay? If you are using the holiday module within the payroll, for the accrual method, calculate holidays at 8% of hours worked, and also the option for calculate holidays at 1/3 of a working week, the holiday brought forward value for the new holiday year is equal to the balance of total holidays due at the end of the holiday year. So basically, whatever was left at the end, you'll be bringing forward into the new as an opening balance per se, okay? Note down the bottom there, for the accrual method, standard holiday entitlements for the holiday year, the holidays brought forward is equal to the holidays due value up to the last preceding period, okay? The second option that it gives you in that window is set up the payroll next holiday year start and end dates. By selecting this option, you instruct the system to automatically set up the start and end dates of the new calendar year on the basis of the dates of the calendar year currently ending. So basically, if you had ran it from the 1st of January to the 31st of December, it'll be saying to you, do you want me to go from the 1st of January this year to the 31st of December this year? That's your choice. Set employees' holiday adjustments to 0. If you're using the holiday module, there is the availability to add on or take away from the holiday total as it stands. This is just saying to you, if you have made adjustments, the option basically resets the holiday adjustments, the plus or the minus figures, values back to 0. Basically, select the option you want to apply and then click Continue Set Period. Even if you don't use the holiday feature, we recommend to still select to roll forward the payroll's holiday and absence year. Otherwise, this screen will annoy you and appear at each start of period, and it is quite frustrating. Once period 1 is set and the holiday year has been successfully rolled forward, you can continue to process your payroll as normal, i.e. retrieve RPNs, enter time and pay, end your period, create your bank file, do your reports, do your backup, a normal payroll. Okay, and basically at the end of that, that is the end of stage 5. We're on page 34, and basically that is your end of process. Now, if you are following through the book, just to go over what's after that, just quickly, we'll just move along, and we are now on page 35. As we spoke about earlier with regards to things to check at the start of the year, we have a guide and other information there. The housekeeping guide that we spoke about earlier, this will give you details with regards to each of those sections that is relevant, or you may want to look through just to familiarize yourself with it. And this is coming from the details on the housekeeping that we gave on page 22, okay? The first one there is with regards to your company information and making sure that detail is correct. And that is in company payroll along the top bars in your payroll, and then click on company details. And as I said to you earlier on, the details to be aware in there is to make sure that there is your company registration number is correct, that in this top section that there is no hyphens or ill-used numbers or indicators used in any of it. And also down in the bottom there, as you can see, with regards to telephone number and fax number on the contact details, that there is no hyphen, space or dash in there, as that the system does not recognize that as it is numeric value, okay? The next one there, just to run through quickly, one or two of them, is with regards to the check director setting we spoke about. And again, this is if it is applicable to yourself. If an employee is a director, you must record what type of director he, she is within the company details. So that this flag can be indicated on your revenue returns. To do this, you must complete the following steps. From the menu bar at the top of your window, click Processing, and then click Employee Details. Alternatively, click Edit Employees on your main window. When you go into the employee in question, on the Personal tab, check that the Director box is ticked, if not selected, if they are a director. Now, the new part with regards to that is to the right of that, where you click the type, then choose whether they are proprietary or non-proprietary with regards to directorship, and save the changes. Repeat the process for each employer that is a director. The most question we get asked is what is a proprietary or non-proprietary director? A proprietary director is the company's beneficial owner or director who can control directly or indirectly more than 15% of the company ordinary share capital. You may not know that, I may not know that. It may be just that the directors are on the headed paper, but you can ask and find out so that you have them indicated as necessary and proper. The next option on that was with regards to check starter dates, again, if you have starters. For new starters this year, check if a start date has been entered on their employee's record. You can check or edit the date an employee started with your company by doing the following. From the menu bar at the top of your window, click Processing, then click Employee Details, or as we said before, click on your Edit Employee box from the actual main window. Open up the Employee Details and select the relevant employee. Within the Salary section of the Personnel tab, check the employee's start date is specified and correct. If it's not, enter the correct date and then click Save. Alternatively, click Cancel to close the record. The next, obviously, the alternative of that is make sure that any leavers have the leaver date in. For leavers this year, check that both the finish date and finish period have been entered on their employee record. You can check and edit the date an employee left your company by doing this in Processing, again, Employee Details, or open Edit Employees on your main window. Pick out the employee in question, open up their record, and then click the Tax PRSI and USC tab, the second tab on the actual employee record. Check that the finish date and finish period are correct for the chosen employee down in the bottom right-hand side of the actual open window. Alternatively, if it's right, just click Cancel to close the record and go back out. If you have, and again, this is only if it's applicable to yourself, if you have PAYE exclusion orders. A PAYE exclusion order is a certificate issued by Revenue that authorizes you to not deduct income tax and/or universal social charge from an employee's pay. If you receive a PAYE exclusion order, you should enter its details immediately on the relevant employee record. If a PAYE exclusion order is issued by Revenue, this will be imported into Sage Payroll when you retrieve RPNs. However, if you need to enter a PAYE exclusion order details manually, follow the steps below. On the menu bar, again, click Processing, Employee Details, or open Edit Employees on your main window with conjoined boxes. In the Employee Details window, select the relevant employees before. And again, on the Tax PRSI and USC tab, the second one across, under Exceptions and Exclusions, click Apply PAYE Exclusion Order checkbox, as shown there in the diagram. Enter the relevant dates in the With Effect From and Has Effect Until boxes. If you're unsure about what dates to enter here, please review the PAYE exclusion order you received from Revenue or contact them directly for assistance with regards to the dates, etc. If a PAYE exclusion order states that Universal Social Charge, NSC or USC, should not be deducted from the employee pay, then also select the USC exempt checkbox. If you are happy that everything has been entered correctly, click Save to save any changes, or alternatively, click Cancel to close the record without saving changes, and you can go and make sure that the details you've received or you've gotten are correct before proceeding again. Repeat the process above for any other employees you need to enter PAYE exclusion orders for, as before. Please note, expired exclusion orders are automatically cleared by the software when you process your year end. Active orders are carried over into the new tax year and do not need to be re-entered when you roll over to the new year. So that's one less thing to worry about. If you have them there in 2019, you will have them brought over into 2020. Okay. Following, the next thing would be, and again, remember, this is only if it's applicable to yourself. If you are using a shadow payroll, shadow payrolls is a term used to report compensation data that is actually paid from another country. If you have an employee on assignment in a foreign country, their wages may need to be reported in both the home and the host countries via a shadow payroll. If you do not have any employees being paid via shadow payroll, you must record this piece of information within their employee record as it required for PAYE submission to revenue. To check shadow payroll settings, the procedure is as follows. Again, go into processing, employee details, or open up edit employees as you're on your main window. Open up the relevant employee section and the relevant employee. Again, go to the second tab where tax, PRSI and USC. Under exceptions and exclusions down in the bottom left, select the shadow payroll tick box. Click save to apply the change. Repeat the process again for any other employees being paid via a shadow payroll. Going on then to check that your pensions are set up correctly. This is quite important to make sure that obviously the settings for any pensions that you may have on the system are actually rolling and obviously processing as they should, and the setup is correct. Your submissions to Ross includes details of any pension contributions made by your employees and your company on their behalf. If you have any pension, personal retirement savings account or PRSA, retirement annuity contract or RAC, or additional voluntary contributions AVC deductions on your payroll, you must check they are set up correctly and that they have a pension link assigned to them. To check pension deduction settings, follow the procedure below. On your menu bar, click this time, go across to the midsection and click company payroll, and then go down to deductions. In the deduction window, double click on the pension that you want to check. When the deduction opens, check that the type is either gross or net. The subtype, the pension scheme or pension link are correct for this pension. If the pension deduction is an AVC, select the AVC checkbox below. When you are happy that the pension is set up correctly, click save. The pension scheme will need to be with regards to if you are creating an electronic file that you send electronically to the pension provider each month or each fortnight, that will need to be filled in there. If it's not in there, that means your pension is not set up correctly to create that file to send it off to the provider when necessary. For employees who are a member of an approved pension scheme or a PRSA, you must ensure that their pension tracing numbers are entered on their employee record. To do this, the process below, again, go into processing, employee details, or again, click on the edit employees on your main window. In the employee window, in the employee details window, select the relevant employee once again. This time go across to your deduction tab. In the pension section, enter the pension tracing number in the pension tracing number field down the bottom left-hand side. Click on save to apply the changes and save them. Again, process the above for any employees who have a pension tracing number. The other items there at the end are, as they say, with medical insurance with regards to liability, which we have had in previous years and most people who use it know how to do it. The other thing at the end of that would be if you have used consolidation companies, again, how to set up a consolidation company. Most people would be familiar with that if they're using it for reporting purposes. But if you're not, the details are there at the end of that. Following on from that, that is all the details that we have. As we said at the beginning, with regards to if you are looking for more detail, if you go on to pimbrook.ie, clearly on our opening web page there, you can see our payroll year-end 2019 resources. Click on more info on that. It gives you main detail with regards to what we have covered. And also, it also gives you shortcuts to other areas of specific details that we have gone through, but you may want to step by step or further information on. Outside of that, if there's anything else we can help you with, obviously we're always in the office and available to answer any questions that you may have. So what I'd like to do now is just go through some questions, and I'll pass over to my associate Jenny there in regards to those.
Good morning, everyone. We're nearly at the end of the webinar, so we're just going to jump to a few questions that have come in. Just before we do that, we just want to remind you that the Revenue have sent out a notification to say that the 2020 RPNs will be available tomorrow, the 4th of December. Now, I know TJ mentioned that earlier on, just to remind you that they won't come into your 2019 system. They'll come into your 2020 system when you set that up. So don't expect them into your 2019 system. Just jumping over to some questions that have come in on chat. With one question here, will the update affect my ROS cert? So we've tested this. We've sent a payroll into the 2020 system. The ROS cert successfully transferred along with that, and so too did the password. The password was saved in that payroll. So if your password is already saved in your payroll, that all should come over. We don't expect any reason for you to reselect your ROS cert or to re-enter your password if it's already saved in your payroll. So we're happy enough that that's going to happen. Just another one, just going back to gift cards. What if the gift card you want to choose is not a one for all gift voucher? Well, that's a good question. Sage have brought this in as a new feature. We expect that they will actually add some other gift card providers in the future. We can't say when, but we do suspect that that will happen.
There's another one there that came in saying that I have ASC on one of my payrolls. What year-end reports do I need to run? As we spoke about, there are two reports for ASC. It's the ASC 35 and the ASC 60. The ASC 35 needs to be printed off and apparently sent off to your head office or your head parent department at the end of the year. The ASC 60, which is an employee report, that needs to be printed off and passed to each of your employees associated with an ASC by the 15th of the 2nd of 2020. And just to notify you, both of these reports can only be printed. They can't actually be PDF'd or emailed. So in that respect, you will still need some paper in the old printer to print those little bits and pieces off.
I have another one here from Gemma. Thanks for your question, Gemma. Can the update be done before the final pay period? For example, after pay period 49, for example, just to get ahead of yourself. Well, actually, that's correct. You can do it then. And it's preferable that it's run before your final pay period, before you run your final pay period. So anytime before that, it's fine. I have another one here, and we'll probably wrap it up on this. What happens if I process a payroll in 2019 with RPNs from 2020? Well, as we said just there earlier, that won't happen because the software will not allow in the 2020 RPNs into your 2019 system. So there's no fear of that happening.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Jenny. Just like to, as we say there on the screen, congratulations. This completes the year-end processing for 2019. I hope you found this informative and above all helpful. As I said, there's more information available on the website. I'd like to thank Jenny and on behalf of myself for being here with you. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you've seen where it's made slightly simpler and more compact for yourselves. And as normal, as I said, if you're having any issues, clarification, we're always here and we're available over the Christmas periods as well. Thank you very much indeed. I log off and I'll let you all get back to a normal day. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.